Okay, I'm going to teach you lesson 5. Pay attention. Okay, on lesson 5, you are going to be given a fraction or the square root of 10 or something, and you're going to have to tell me if it's rational or irrational, terminating or non-terminating, repeating or non-repeating. We have to know what the word terminate means. Terminate means stop! Terminate means stop! Or end. Okay, so that's what terminate means. It stops or ends. It doesn't keep going and going and going and going. Okay, so the first one is 4/5. You have to write that as a decimal. No pencils. To do that, punch 4 divided by, that little bar means divided by, 5, and tell me what it says.
8/10.
How do you read it? 0.8. Okay, so you got that part done. Now you have to tell me if it's rational or irrational. So, would you read me the definition of a rational number?
Rational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as a fraction.
Beautiful. Okay, it's a number that can be expressed as a fraction. Well, ain't that a fraction? Then it's rational. If it's a fraction, by golly, it's rational. So you'd circle rational. You circle that. Okay, now let's do the next one. Punch 7 divided by 9. What do you get?
7, repeating 8.
7, 7. Oh, and then it has a bunch of 7s, and then does it have an 8? Okay, that's what the calculator says. But in actuality, it goes forever. It's 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Why did it stop and put an 8 on the end? Because there's no more holes. It ran out of spaces. So it had to stop. It had to terminate because there's no other. But it doesn't really terminate. It really goes 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7 forever. But he ran out of spaces. So when it comes out like that, you know it really, I'm going to put a wavy equal sign. That means is about equal to. And you put 0.7 with a repetend bar over it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That means the 7 repeats. Okay, so that's what it turns into. Now, is that 7/9 rational or irrational? What was the definition of rational?
Can be expressed as a fraction.
Good, can be expressed as a fraction. Is that a fraction?
Yes.
Then it's rational. So that's rational. Now, is it terminating or non-terminating?
Non-terminating.
Terminating means it stops.
It's not.
Remember I said it doesn't really stop because 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, face the front, sit up straight, spit, spot, looks good, shitty on nose. Alright, so it's terminating or non-terminating. It goes forever. Now, is it repeating or non-repeating?
Repeating.
It's repeating. 7, 7, 7, 7. That's repeating. Alright, punch the square root of 10, please. These are getting harder and harder.
It's 3.1622.
Wait. 3.16.
227766.
That's what the calculator says. Does that terminate? Does it stop or does it not stop?
It stops.
Well, it stopped on the calculator, but the only reason it stopped is because it ran out of holes. It really goes forever when it comes out like that. It really goes forever. The calculator just said, I'm out of spaces, I gotta cut you off. So really it goes forever. So is it terminating or non-terminating? Non-terminating. It doesn't stop. Is it repeating or non-repeating? Now this is confusing. It is non-repeating, but a lot of people think it's repeating when it says, well, it has a 2 and a 2, it has a 7 and a 7, it has a 6 and a 6. Yeah, but it doesn't repeat in a pattern. It doesn't go 2, 2, 7, 7, 6, 6, 2, 2, 7, 7, 6. You know, it doesn't do that. So, it's non-repeating. And then, would that be rational or irrational?
Irrational.
Yes, if you circle non and non, it's irrational. Because the definition of irrational says it goes forever, it does, and never repeats. That goes forever and never repeats. Now you can remember that easy. It goes forever and never repeats. Forever and never repeats. Well, that goes forever and never repeats. Irrational. Another word for irrational is like crazy. Like if a person, they're completely irrational. They're crazy. They're nuts, man. Irrational is crazy. That's a crazy number. 80K, 1 to go, and this is the hardest one. 1 divided by 7, and what?
Is 0.14285714.
Whoa, slow down. 142857.
1429.
Really? Really? Oh, okay. Now, at first glance, does that look like it repeats or not?
Yes.
No.
No.
It looks like it does not, but it does. Look.
The 9.
142857, 142, and the only reason that's a 9 is because the calculator rounded it off. It really goes 142857, 142857, 142857. So that's repeating. Okay, that's repeating. Does it terminate?
No.
No. It's non-terminating because when it comes out like that, the only reason it stopped is because it ran out of hose. Now, is that rational or irrational?
Rational.
Rational because it's a
Fraction.
fraction. Okay, now I'm going to erase all of this. That's one thing you have to do. And the other thing you have to do is the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem. All right, Pythagorean. This guy named Pythagoras, he figured this out. All right, in every right triangle, what is that called?
The hypotenuse.
Oh, very good. Hypotenuse. Does anybody know what these are called?
Legs.
Yes! 2 legs and a hypotenuse. Every right triangle has 2 legs and a hypotenuse. Now, you have to be able to tell me which is the hypotenuse. So, what you do, well, first of all, it's always the longest one. But another way is to go to the playground. See that little blocked in part? That's the fence. This is the playground. Watch me. Walk to the playground. Walk across the street and say, hypotenuse. So what is the hypotenuse? P, K, or M?
K.
Yes. K. Go to the playground. Walk across the street and say, hypotenuse. Who's the hypotenuse?
Z.
Z.
Z. Go to the playground. Walk across the street and say, hypotenuse. Z. Now, the formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Lowercase letters. If it uses lowercase letters, you use lowercase letters. And then, these are always the legs, and the c is always the hypotenuse. Always. Always. Okay, so instead of a squared, I'll put 8 squared. Instead of b squared, I'll put 11 squared. Then you always bring down your c squared. You always bring down your c squared. What's 8 squared?
64.
64. What's 11 squared?
121.
Ooh, that's good. Always bring down your c squared. You always bring down your c squared. Now, if you plus these two together, you get 185. And then you always bring down your c squared. You always bring down your c squared until you get to the very end. And we are. Then you put c. I don't want to see squared, I want c. How do you get c? You punch the square root. This is the part everybody always forgets. You punch the square root of 185 and tell me what it says, please.
13.6014705.
Now, you could round that off and just say 13.6. Hey, is that terminating or non-terminating?
Non-terminating.
It only stops because he ran out of hose. It's non-terminating. In actuality, it goes forever. Is it rational or irrational? Irrational because it goes forever and never repeats. Crap, can't even turn it on. Oh, now one more thing I want to show you how to develop your spatial perception. I'm going to develop your spatial perception. A box like a box is 3-dimensional, 3D. So if you draw that box on a flat finger, then you have to picture in your brain, I'm going to call this 10, and I'm going to call this 9, and I'm going to call this 8. Okay, you have to picture in your brain, be able to look at that and determine the length and the width and the height in a problem like this. If I told you that I wanted to cover the lid of that box with paper, how many square inches would I need? Inches, inches, inches. I'll say it again. If I want to cover the top of that box, the lid, with paper, how many square inches would it take? Well, I'm talking about the lid, nothing else. So you have to be able to look at just the lid. So I'm going to outline the lid of that box. What shape is that? It's a rectangle. How do you find the area of a rectangle? What's the formula? Length times width. Now, the problem is there's 3 numbers, and you have to pick only 2 of them. Only 2 of those numbers is the length and the width of the lid. Which 2? You have to develop your spatial perception. Is it a 10 by 9 or a 9 by 8 or an 8 by 10?
10 by 9.
10 by 9. This is developing your spatial perception. Because look, from here to here, that one's easy. From here to here, you can say, oh, that's 10. But from here to here, that's slanty. What other one is slanty? The 9. That's the height. That's how tall it is. So you'd put 10 by 9, area of 90. Now we have to do one more thing. 2,500. We're going to write that in scientific notation. This is scientific notation. That 2.5 has a name. I'm going to write the name of it on the board, and if you know it, say it. It's called a... What?
Mantis.
You're close. It's tis. It's a mantissa. The mantissa. The mantissa has to be a number between 1 and 10. 2.5, 3.8, 6.7. It has to have a digit and a point after it. So that's the mantissa. And the times 10, that's always going to be times 10 for scientific notation. In 2,500, the point, there was no point. It's understood to be there. I moved it to here. How many places did I move it? 3. So it's 2.5 times 10 to the 3. Done. Cut.